Hello everyone, I'm Mark Tuxford and welcome to my podcast, People Behind Brands. Brought to you by Making Websites Better. In each episode, I'm joined by an inspirational guest to hear more about their individual life lessons and how it shaped them into who they are today. To never miss an episode, subscribe to our exclusive content now and follow us on our social media platforms. People Behind Brands, life lessons from the world of business.
For me, I suffered this bout of unexpected weight gain and depression, and I managed to get it under control through completely changing my diet. And it's basically what you feed yourself or your dog impacts their entire life.
For an insightful and scientific chat into microbiomes, I'm joined by Asher Nathan, co-founder of BIOME9, the UK's first gut health test and personalised supplement programme for dogs. During this episode, Asher provides more insight into our human and pet health and why we should stand up and take notice sooner rather than later. Asher also opens up about his personal journey, which has involved persistence and resilience to get where he is today, overcoming personal hardships, family challenges, depression, and starting a business from his hospital bed whilst paralysed in between operations for a slipped disc in his back. An insightful episode into a trending topic with a man who's always looking for the next opportunity.
Welcome to People Behind Brands podcast. How you doing?
Yeah, great, thank you. Yeah, you?
Yeah, very well, thanks, mate. Good to have you. So Asher is CEO of BIOME9. The company is the UK's first gut health test and personalised supplement programme for dogs. Using generative AI technology, BIOME9 provides a window into your dog's inner world to transform their health and longevity, similar to that of brands such as Zoe Health, but for the dog world. Since co-founding the brand, Asher and the team have since launched an at-home gut microbiome testing service designed to improve the long-term health and well-being of our companion animals. Asher will touch upon more about the business and its journey so far, but of course, we take time to delve deeper into Asher's life lessons throughout our chat today and find out what it makes him tick. So Asher, let's start with the first question. So take us back to the start and tell us how you became involved with BIOME9.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really interesting kind of serendipitous meeting. I met my co-founder, James, who has started other businesses before, to discuss something completely different. My background's actually in skincare. For the last 10 years, I've had my own skincare brand, and I sold that in COVID, and I've worked for another couple of years. And we went for dinner. I'd never met him before. And over dinner, we started talking about what we were eating and about skin microbiome. And one thing went to another. And we got chatting about the gut microbiome and how it's kind of played a role in my life and how it's playing a role in his life. And I kind of discovered that he was this obsessive biohacker who, and I've opened his drawers since, and there's hundreds and hundreds of supplements in there, and he's got all sorts of machines in his house that he plugs himself into. And we kind of had this meeting of minds. My story kind of goes back sort of 10 years about discovering the microbiome, and his was very current. He also had issues with his own dog as well, and he kind of used, I guess, conventional treatment methods, and it hadn't really gone to plan. So he started kind of biohacking with his own dogs and finding a better way, and that led him to gut health, much in the same way that I did with my own health. Anyway, fast forward about 3 or 4 hours, he convinced me to join him on this journey, and it's amazing. I was quickly introduced to bioscientists that he was working with, and about 3 days later, I was kind of learning the ropes of 16S rRNA sequencing, which I'd never heard of in my life, and finding out all these things about bacterial subspecies that I never knew existed as well.
So did you really hit it off? Obviously, it sounds like you really hit it off with your co-founder, because if you hadn't met him and obviously just going out for dinner and then sort of continuing this sort of journey now, so that's quite something.
Yeah, I mean, it's been almost a year now, and James is a great guy. He's full of ideas, brilliant momentum, and he keeps kind of things pedaling as well. And he's, like me, a problem solver. So when there's an issue, he'll always try and find a solution. He'll always keep kind of energies high, which is what you really need when you're founding a business, because I'm sure we'll touch on it later, but it doesn't always go to plan, and things aren't always plain sailing, as I'm sure you know from interviewing others. But I think it was more that we both had this journey in gut health for different reasons, and my own journey started kind of a long time back when my son was born, which is nearly 12 years ago now. And he was given this strong dose of antibiotics when he was 1 day old. And I was in the hospital and I had this split-second decision that I had to make. Like, they said, do you want to give him antibiotics? And I thought, I come from a medical family. Mum and dad are both pharmacists. And I kind of have this big no against antibiotics. But then you're kind of told that, well, if you don't, then he might die. And he's got this potentially serious infection, bacterial infection, which I now know only affects about 1 in 10,000. But knowing what I know now and all the research that I did subsequently, I'm really angry with myself for letting that happen. Because I think, and I'm convinced now, and I don't want this to be kind of medical advice to people, you take the advice of your doctors, but I think that has led to him having serious atopic skin reactions through his life and this kind of constant battle with eczema. And it's really painful and it's awful to watch him when he goes through these episodes. And he still struggles with it now, age 12, and most people grow out of eczema in their childhood. And we now control that through trial and error, and I have done my own thing with probiotics to help him. Certain probiotic strains help with skin reactions and eczema. But I guess gut health for me is one of those topics where the more you read, and there's a lot in the media now as well, it's a bit of a zeitgeist, you kind of understand how it really is at the heart of almost everything in your body, the neurochemicals that are produced, serotonin, the hormone balance, it all goes back to the gut. And for me, I suffered this bout of unexpected weight gain and depression, and I managed to get it under control through completely changing my diet. And it's basically what you feed yourself or your dog impacts their entire life. And I'm a true believer in that. If you eat clean and you eat well, and I changed my diet completely. So I only eat grass-fed meat now. I eat tons of fiber. I try and eat my 30 plants a week. And I religiously stick to eating organic produce where possible. There's a little rule called the clean 15 and the dirty dozen, which that's my mantra if I'm going to eat non-organic. And I take pre, pro, and postbiotics daily, along with loads of other vitamins and minerals. And I try and keep my microbiome healthy. And like most dog owners, the only way to tell whether your gut is in balance is by looking, for me, in the toilet. And you see what comes out the other end. And that will tell you everything you kind of need to know.
What would you say is why is dog health so important to you?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, I'm not a dog owner, and I haven't owned a dog since I moved to London, I'll confess. As a child, I remember distinctly when Skimble was put down. She suffered a twisted bowel. I was only 9, but I can still picture her kind of retching as she walked backwards along the kitchen floor, being sick. And it was a horrendous ordeal and harrowing, and it left a massive scar for me and my parents. They didn't have insurance, which was a big problem. And she was only a year old, or just over a year old, I think. But I experienced that real, I guess, love that you get from having a pet. I remember crying for weeks, if not months, at the emptiness that it left me. So I think, that's kind of shaped sort of part of my compassion for the subject matter, but then also my own interest in the subject matter has led me down to going, well, this is it's a wonderful thing. And actually, I honestly think people will listen more when it's about their dog's health and it's about their own health.
Yeah.
And actually, if we can help people with habits, show them that the science works and show them that you can make improvements through diet for your dog's long-term health, then you can apply that to your own health as well. And actually, people will give up less easily on looking after their own health. So I think it's one of those things that kind of crosses many planes, and hopefully we're spreading good word, as are the likes of the other companies like Zoe and Tim Spector's work. We're at 2 out of 10 at the moment, let's be honest, with gut health, and there's so much more research and so much more that we need to learn. I don't actually think anyone's a true expert on it yet, and it'll be years before anyone is. But ultimately, my experience of owning a pet, and I think it put my parents off getting another one, and we only had cats after that. And a few members of the team will probably disagree with me, but dogs are definitely better. And the scientific proof that dogs make you happier as a person because of that bond that exists, the one that I felt as well, and their ability to care and respond to human emotions. So I guess if we can help, each dog live a longer, healthier life through what we do, then I guess inadvertently we're improving people's lives as well, not just the animals.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with your point about people wanting to look after their dogs really more than themselves, to be honest, especially with their health. It's quite easy to sort of put more emphasis on your dog than it is yourself, as it is probably with children as well. So, but obviously doing the research into our podcast episode today, I mean, I believe your company has recently launched an at-home gut microbiome testing service designed to improve the long-term health and well-being of our pet dogs. So talk us through that a little bit more.
Yeah, of course. We kind of like to call it getting the inner scoop on your dog's poop. In a nutshell, Gut Discovery, which is our product, we analyze trillions of bacteria in your dog's sample, and then we use that to create a bespoke report that recommends dietary changes, nutritional additions, things to avoid, superfoods, as well as a bespoke supplement plan. And that contains kind of not just probiotics, prebiotics, but a full range of supplements that we tailor based upon the results of your dog's unique microbiome makeup. So we look at the microbiome, then we make recommendations of what we find. And the aim of those recommendations, as I touched on before, is to help try and correct any of the imbalances that we see and we find in those bacterial populations. How it works, it's a really simple test. It's painless. It's a stool sample. You get the kit from our website. Once it arrives, you just take a quick scoop of a fresh stool sample, not too much grass, please. Pop it in the test tube, and then you just post it back to our UK lab. And we've set up our own lab so that we can process things really quickly. Once it's in the lab, the process is quite simple. I say that, the bioscientists will disagree with me, but they extract all the DNA from the bacteria in the sample and they put it into a human grade sequencing machine. And that basically maps out the dog's ecosystem. In other words, I guess the precise makeup of all the different bacteria and species of microflora that we find and in what abundance and what that means. Then we run it through our generative AI. We've built our own foundational models, and that helps us instantly make sense of the data and turn it into a really easy to read, color-coded report that with the aim of eliminating a lot of the guesswork that goes on with finding the right nutritional balance for dogs.
I think microbiomes generally, I mean, my missus has been doing Zoe Health and she's got some real kind of great insight from her own sort of gut health, really. And I think it's kind of been something of a bit of a trend as we look further into our own health. So what similarities does BIOME9 have with that of a human gut health, such as Zoe Health or other brands out there?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's the first thing I'd say is it's probably quite useful to understand kind of what we think about as a microbiome. It's basically it's an ecosystem, a bit like a jungle of bacteria, and they live and they work together and they communicate with one another. And whether you're in a dog, a human, a tiger, a monkey, that specific set of bacteria is a lot of it's based on your environment and what you eat, and obviously your genetic makeup. And you can't change your genes. Well, you can, but it's very, very difficult. But it's very easy to modulate and change a microbiome. And I think Zoe and ourselves are both in it for this commitment to long-term well-being. And we look at Zoe, we actually think of ourselves as a bit of a Zoe for dogs. But essentially I kind of liken it to like a Wi-Fi mesh. Imagine you kind of got Wi-Fi points all over your house and then suddenly you go into a black spot. Well, that black spot is where those mesh points are not communicating with each other. And I guess that's the danger for health, is that when the bacteria, which are those Wi-Fi spots, are no longer able to communicate with each other, that's when you get things like leaky gut syndrome.
Yeah.
And what they do is they shut down rogue or harmful cells. They produce neurochemicals to fight disease. They respond to things that you give in food. They produce metabolites and short-chain fatty acids that produce energy and process amino acids for the animal. And so Zoe's research into human is very similar to the research we're doing for dogs, because those basic functions are exactly the same. A dog has a lot more species of bacteria than a human, but we're still discovering new species of bacteria. So there's a lot of similarities, but ultimately that end goal is about better personalization of health choices through diet, through ultimately medicine for the animal. And the more data we have about the dog, the better we know, the better we can adapt, the better we can change those recommendations in much the same way that Zoe will push new updates live when they find new research. We can do exactly the same. So you get your sample on day one, and your report on day one might not look like your report a year down the line when we've discovered new things and we've changed our tolerances and we've changed our markers and we've changed our rules. So I think ultimately we're all spreading that good word about that delicate ecosystem and what it means for long-term health. And we both use advanced technologies to do so.
Do you see like a Zoe Health or brands such as that? Do you see them as competitors? Because it kind of sounds like you're sort of working in a way together and not so much competing. It's more that like you're working towards the same goal at least.
Yeah, I mean we're definitely working towards the same goal. I think Tim Spector at Zoe has spent probably the best part of 30 years researching microbiome and the things that make it different. We see there's a lot to learn from Zoe and Alba and the other brands like 23andMe and Ancestry. They're doing brilliant things for personalization of health, and I think we're starting out on our journey. Why wouldn't we learn from them? I don't see them as a competitor, but what they're doing is spreading the word about how important gut health is. Gut health in dogs is very, very important. You ask anybody who has watched their dog suffer with diarrhea, like constant changes in stool and fussiness and allergies and skin reactions. Like the list is endless, and actually dogs are suffering on multiple fronts at the moment. So I don't see Zoe as a competitor. I see them as an enabler for us to do better work and to actually add more value to dog owners' lives.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. I mean, talk to us about the makeup of BIOME9 as well, because I read this is a brand backed by a team of scientists and veterinary expertise. So can you elaborate on the team that have helped to obviously make the company what it is today?
Yeah, so it was obviously a bit of work done before I joined, and I was introduced to a few members of the team as well. But I mean, it was supported by experts in veterinary science, bioinformatics, microbiology, nutritional science, and we formed very early on. We formed a partnership with a company called Axio to co-found the business. Their CEO is actually our chief scientific and chief technology officer, and he's one of the co-founders. This collective expertise that we've brought in has positioned us to kind of, I guess, pioneer pet wellness, and there's years of scientific research and studies that have gone on, and we've gained insight from not only animal health but also the technology that's been used for identifying skin cancer in humans, and we've used that to aid creating the hub and the health platform that we now use for dogs. So as well as myself and James, both non-scientific, our co-founder is Dr. Stephen Christie, and he's a global leader in bioinformatics and computer science. Got five degrees,
Oh.
if you can imagine that. A PhD in machine learning, just to throw it in. And he's got 30 years of experience and specializes in AI for healthcare. So a wonderful expertise to draw upon. And he's been crucial in developing the platform, the advanced algorithms, the predictive models that we use that underpin our core recommendations. And then we've brought in Joe Ingalls, who's our head of veterinary science and nutrition. And he's formerly a TB vet, but actually his true passion is about personalization of nutrition for dogs. So when we met last year, I guess it was another meeting of minds. We shared the immediate passion for the whole project. So his role involves leading kind of development of our nutritional plans, our supplements, and overseeing the research that goes on with other partners and coordinating that back with the lab and the bioscience team. Chloe is our lead bioscientist, so she brings a lot of the animal expertise, so animal health and disease. She also runs the lab, and we're proud that we're basically the only animal microbiome testing service in the UK that runs their own lab. Which means we've got this really tight integration between a customer ordering, sample analysis, research, and product development. So unlike most testing services where typically they offer results in sort of 4 to 6 weeks, we're able to get that down to almost a week, which for a microbiome population, that's really, really important because it can change very quickly depending on what you feed and what you fed that day. the microbiome population can change. So in order to get that snapshot in time and understand what's going on and how to modulate it, having results turned around quickly is really important for us, and it was a core part of our proposition.
Yeah, definitely. So just pulling away, obviously, from kind of sort of the business aspect of things at the moment, and obviously the journey that BIOME9 is on at the moment. I'm a little bit more intrigued to find out more about you, about your personality, and what you are, what your sort of purpose is in life, and what makes you tick when you're kind of away from all of that kind of sort of business aspect.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one, and I think our purposes change with age. If you kind of asked me 10 years ago, I guess I'd probably have said I want to run a successful brand, but I never really thought about what that really means. Now I think my drive, like if I think about purpose, it's all about drive, and it's a combination of passion and relationships. And I can find passion in many things. And as long as I can bring people with me on that journey and teach them along the way, then that's what motivates me and keeps me going. Deep down, I'm, as you can probably tell, a little bit geeky. So, I get massive satisfaction from solving logical problems and logistical problems. And I'm kind of known as a problem solver amongst the team. And in my former business, I'm not worried when faced with problems. I always think there's a solution. So if I can combine that with helping people and building relationships, then I'm in my element. And that's what kind of drives me. I actually once trained as a chef. So as far as like kind of my other purpose, I guess good food makes me tick, and eating well and staying healthy. But interestingly, when I trained as a chef, I wasn't really that interested in cooking people's dinners. What I really enjoyed was teaching people about the food, about the ingredients, and about how to cook themselves. So I guess that kind of transcended into what I'm doing now. And my style of cooking probably embodies that as well in some senses. Because I kind of face myself with a logistical challenge every week, which is how do I use everything in my fridge so that I never throw anything away.
I think these examples of sort of past career experiences, like as a chef or you as a person, and obviously going into sort of the BIOME9 journey, it sounds like to me that you really like to sort of give back. That's your kind of sort of core values, that you like to give back and give that kind of education to change someone's life, someone's health, whatever it might be from that point of view. But you're giving these people the skills to improve their life. That's how it sort of seems to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely making me tick. It's funny, there's nothing more satisfying than somebody coming back to you and saying, oh, I did that thing that you said I should do. And I go, oh, how was it? And then you share this moment of kind of like, I've helped you, you've gained something from it. I don't necessarily need your money to make that happen, make me happy, and make that purpose be fulfilled. But you ask a lot of my friends, they probably say I'm a bit preachy about ingredients, but I do like kind of the science of food. And I always think that science and empirical evidence is the way to kind of prove a problem or solve a problem. So like I'm obsessed with kind of pickling my own things and all that sort of stuff. So I've got I pickle and ferment anything. So I've got a massive jar of super hot kimchi going on at the moment. I've got my own pickled red onions, like not the stuff you buy in shops, but they taste completely different because they're kind of salty. But I'll always make sure that when people come round, I go, here, try a mouthful of this, and they're like, what are you giving me a mouthful of onion? But they've got 40 strains of probiotics in them, so they're very good for you.
There you go. So, I mean, our podcast, for those obviously that are listening regularly, know that, it's founded upon honesty and how testing times have impacted, good or bad, on our personal or working lives. But away from business, can you give us a little bit more about kind of like a challenging time in your life? I know obviously you mentioned a little bit more about your son earlier on with sort of issues that he's had, but whether it's that or other sort of challenges or hardships that you've sort of experienced, maybe you could elaborate on a few.
Yeah, sure. I guess, like many things that shape us, they change as well. Like personalities metamorphosize, especially as you get older. But looking back, I think I've had a number of things that have happened to me, like not devastating, but where I've needed resilience. And I think resilience, my wife always says it's my superpower. But I think in this world now, you just have to have immense resilience just to get by. And I look at the younger kids and my children's generation, I think their resilience is going to be tested on a daily basis, and it already is. I think people look at successful founders of businesses, and they're in the apex of their careers, and they kind of, if you don't know and you've never been there yourself, you kind of look at them and think, oh, they probably just got lucky, or good idea at the right time, and some serendipitous fortune that sort of led them there. But I think it's really never plain sailing, and my I guess my experiences have been that way. My moment came when I was about 30, and my son had just been born, so same year as the antibiotics incident. I was this happy new father working as a marketing consultant, running what was the start of my agency. And in my spare time, I was chefing on the side, cooking kind of elaborate dinners in Southwest London at supper clubs. And I had quite big plans for that. And I thought I was going to go from one thing to another, getting clients. And then one day I just slipped a disc in my back, putting my son into a travel cot. And fast forward sort of 4 or 5 weeks later, I was completely paralysed in one leg. I had shingles. I couldn't walk, and I had to stop cooking because I couldn't stand up. And I remember running a session for a company, and I was lying on the floor running this session, and I just, that fear came over me of like, what if this thing never goes away? How am I going to make a living? Anyway, I went to hospital, had an operation, and instead of just kind of like wallowing while I was there, I get bored quite easily. I just started researching, and whilst I'd had my back problems, I got a friend to bend a golf club so that I could hook it around my back and start massaging myself, to try and ease some of that pressure and some of the tension in my back. I just started saying yes to things when people came and see me, in the hope that one thing would lead to another, which it did. And I actually set up my last business in my hospital bed when a friend came to visit me and convinced me to turn my golf club into a back massager. And I didn't know where it was going to lead, but I just needed something to do. And I just kind of thought, this is a test of my resilience. So I just started researching. Anyway, 2 years later, I was flying out to America, Australia, Europe, selling my back nodule on TV, on QVC across the globe and on other TV shopping channels. And a year after that same friend and I started our skincare brand, Magnetone, which was doing £1 million in revenue, and being launched in Harvey Nichols. So I guess that kind of test of resilience, and I've had other tests of resilience. The most part of that year after my operation, I was still lying on the floor, working kind of upright on a laptop. And so, it definitely, the operation didn't go as planned, and I had to have a second one. But it just taught me the power of like just persistence, resilience. And it's easy to say no and give up on things sometimes, but I think especially when you're faced with hardships. So I kind of like the fact that I'm really constantly open to new ideas. I probably wouldn't have joined BIOME9 if I'd been any different, because you meet somebody once and you kind of get bought into an idea, you go, right, come on, let's do it. I don't know where this is going to go, but and I like the idea of doing things differently, challenging myself. It's all part of that experience of living life. And I guess,
well, it sounds like you don't do things by halves. You throw things right in there, and it's very much all.
No, exactly.
So I think that's a good way to live your life. And obviously, when you've had experiences like that, it's very much like kind of sort of sliding door moments, as you say. Like if you haven't had that experience, you might not be part of BIOME9 now. So I quite like hearing these types of stories where there is very much like a sliding door moment in there somewhere. But obviously, you mentioned about your wife earlier, and obviously, the people around us are a massive part of why we do what we do. So, how much of an impact does building a successful brand or brands in that so to speak how does that have on your personal life? When you consider time spent with family or with your children as well, and your own mental health.
Yeah, I mean, mental health is really important, and especially, I think, knowing what I know now. I made the mistake in my first business. We actually got our Series A investment just as my daughter was born, and I pretty much missed the first year of her life. And I took my eye completely off that ball, and it was gone in the blink of an eye. Work was everything, and I felt like some kind of martyr for doing 80-hour weeks. And in reality, it massively took its toll on me a few years later. We had a legal case, and long story short, business went bankrupt, and this was a store up of mental health triggers, and it led to kind of my weight gain and my depression. I was completely out of balance. So I don't think if you're out of check, you don't make good decisions at work or at home. And at that point, it was kind of the worst of both worlds. So I was in this vicious cycle. Marriage got into trouble. I was overly short with the kids. I didn't like myself. I wasn't focused on kind of being kind to myself. And dare I say, I was self-loathing. And having had that experience, it's been amazing because I got help, and it's the best thing I've ever done. Taught me the value of putting balance, nurturing the different parts of that kind of healthy world, my own ecosystem. We all live in our own little kind of microbiome, I suppose, and you've got to keep all the bits balanced. And there's 1,000,001 self-help books out there, but my principle is pretty simple, and it's be kind to yourself, look out for your health, and look out for those that love you, and the rest will take care of you. But I think running any business, yet to be decided whether it's successful, by the way, it's totally all-consuming, and I think any founder will agree with me. So it's essential that when you're running the business, you actually take moments for downtime, because it's also where you crystallize your thinking as well. And there's so many spinning plates in life. I honestly believe that if you don't, you'll stop making good decisions. You'll stop having clarity of thought. You'll reach burnout very quickly. And especially as we get older, it's like I'm in my 40s, mid 40s. You will become overly reliant on external influences, whether that's alcohol, eating, something else will fill that void. So I'm very, very conscious of taking time out, downtime, in order to do my thinking and spend time with those that keep me high for the next week. And as I've got more older, I've just become more appreciative of those like simple things in life, and being present when my kids need me, or being outside in nature and trying to nurture closer relationships, because they're the things that keep you going. I read a stat that the older you get as a male, the more lonely you become if you don't nurture those things. And actually there comes a point where you're going to need your friends. You're going to need not just your family. You're going to need those things around you to keep you active, keep you happy. And I've always kind of got one eye on that as I kind of approach 50, I suppose.
Yeah.
So, yeah, really important part of managing a business, and letting go as well, so the team have their space as well, I think is really, really important. It helps build mental health because you don't shoulder everything yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, one thing I will say to you, Asher, is that you don't look 45, mate. You're definitely a lot younger than that. That's what I thought, anyway.
I'm 44, so.
Yeah, well, there you go. I thought he was at least kind of like early 30s, maybe less. So take your gut biome's working, mate.
Skincare business.
Yeah. So with obviously obviously BIOME9 taking a lot of your time up at the moment. Away from work, how do you like to sort of unwind from a busy week?
So I mean, I'm a family man. I've still got young kids, and I guess I'm trying to keep up with the latest playground slang and being appropriately dressed to be seen in public with him as he's getting into his teens. I still enjoy kind of reading with my daughter. Little simple things. I spend as much time outside in nature as I possibly can. So whether that be a long hike in the Surrey Hills, we live in Surrey, so it's really lovely, or a long cycle ride, just something to kind of switch my brain off and just enjoy breathing in nature and listening to sounds that you don't hear when you're in the city. I still cook every now and again. When we're a full house, I do love cooking a nice meal. I think for me, one of my principles is that it's really important to sit and eat as a family at least once or twice a week. It's the only time you kind of really connect, and I think it's important to make time for it, especially as kids get older. They need you, and you still need to be there as their guardians and make sure that they're not just hidden behind a screen, and you understand what's going on in their world and looking into the whites of their eyes. I still try and play guitar. I'm not a rock star, although I nearly was when I was 18. I had this kind of another sliding door moment where I had to choose going to university and getting a degree or signing a record contract, and I chose the former. But yeah, my interests also revolve around reading about supplements, bizarrely, longevity supplements and biohacks and weird health routines and that I can adopt and bring into my life. So it's all a bit middle-aged, unfortunately. So.
Well, we've got to hear more about this record contract. So I can't end this episode without that.
You want me to tell you about that?
Yeah.
I was in a band age 17, 18, and we were actually very good. We played in the same places that Oasis. I grew up in Manchester, so played in the same places that Oasis played, and we actually still hold the record in one of the venues ahead of them. And yeah, we were offered a contract by London Records, and there were 4 of us in the band. One had an offer from Cambridge as a doctor. One was going to be a doctor at Bristol, and then there were two of us who really good friends, and we wanted to be in the band, but we decided that without our guitarist and our drummer, it was going to be very difficult. So, so unfortunately that didn't happen. And my dad also convinced me that I should go and get a proper job.
Yeah.
And not be a rock star. Because
where do you think you would have gone? Because obviously people have got dreams, haven't they? But in your honest opinion, where do you feel that you would have gone with that band? If everyone was obviously on the same page and they didn't go for their jobs and all that sort of stuff, do you think you would have gone quite far?
It's almost impossible to say. It wasn't a particularly lucrative contract, and I think I'd have probably bankrupted myself for 3 or 4 years trying to make ends meet. The reality is it was probably a wise decision by some wiser people to tell me to go to university. But it was always great playing on stage. It's literally a roll of a dice whether you are going to make it as a musician. It's so hard. And this was in the 90s, so potentially easier if you get good publicity. But again, there's no guarantees that anyone will like your music. We just had a decent following in Manchester. That doesn't necessarily translate to the world. So I think probably made the right decision if I'm honest. And I still enjoy playing music. So that's the thing that I cherish from all of that, is that music is a wonderful thing and it's a great downtime. And I think anyone who plays a musical instrument, A, keeps their brain healthy, and B, has something that they can always just pick up and do, and it's sociable and helps you kind of relax as well. So I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, it's a great skill to have, though, isn't it? But yeah, Asher, honestly, it's been a real great pleasure to sit down with you today. I really enjoyed that episode. So thank you for your time today, more than anything. Perhaps you'd like to tell us a little bit more about where people can find BIOME9, how they can do sort of trials with the products as well, and obviously just benefit from using it. Yeah,
so I mean, look, it's available now. We have stock, which is great. And the lab is up and running and working well. It launched about 4 weeks ago, which is fantastic, and it's been brilliant. It's had a great reception as well, both from professional and from just consumer world. So really excited about what we're going to be able to do for the health of dogs and for the longevity of those animals and their owners. The website BIOME9, spelled BIOME. Most people pronounce it BIOME. BIOME9.com. On Instagram, you'll find us on BIOME9 as our handle. And if you want to get hold of a Gut Discovery kit for your dog, they're £149, but there's a £20 off code that's available until the end of March. So grab one and let us know how you get on with the results.
So that's it for this episode of People Behind Brands. If you like what you heard today, do yourself a favour. Subscribe to our exclusive content now and follow us on our social media when you search People Behind Brands podcast or at podcast PBB. Join us next time for a brand new guest as we explore more life lessons from the world of business. We'll see you soon. Ta-da!